Good morning, everyone. Sorry for the delay. Welcome, welcome. Had a few issues this morning with the modem, or not the modem, the router, but got everything all taken care of now, so we're ready to rock and roll for the most part. Let me make sure everything is ready to go. There we go. So obviously it's if we're a little bit behind, so I'm not going to go through the normal morning stuff. I want to make sure that we get into the open. Just make sure on the right side of the screen there that you read through the morning prep PDF. Very important to go through and understand everything that's inside there. And as far as the morning brief levels, those are posted for you this morning on all of the major 7. I've got all those taken care of for you. News today, we had news at 8:30, and there is news today at 10 o'clock. Pretty straightforward from there. CB consumer confidence forecast is 123.9. That's really about all that's going on, though. Let's get that. Oh, that's the community area for YouTube. Get that out of the way. And let's swap that over. Okay. There we go. So a little bit of a faster jump through everything there, but I know we're already going into 9:28. We don't have a whole lot of time, so as far as the bigger picture across the board, we can see that we've got some halfway decent movement sideways for the most part on the indexes after some pretty solid movement up. Looking at other markets like gold, nice little bounce off the lows, but not really much going on there. Crude oil's pretty sideways. Euro finally waking up. Euro might actually be worth something, but then again, the last time it did that, it totally died off. I don't know. We'll see. The crypto side of things looking all right. Bouncing back a little bit. Again, not going to spend too much time on it. As far as the bigger picture goes on the NASDAQ, we can see that we've got some incredibly strong momentum on this fifth wave to the upside, or the anticipated fifth wave up. And now we're seeing a bit of sideways ABCD corrective phasing going on. Pretty common sense. But the one big thing that stands out is that big POC up at 15,100. That's a toughie. Yeah, I know, right? Speed run. We'll whip through this real quick. We've got the 15,100s on this ABC correction. We might still be going sideways for a little while, and inside of this there might be smaller corrections and all that fun stuff. Realistically, the big concern right now is the fact that 15,100 volume is smack at the top. That's tough. That makes that really, really difficult. We'll see what they're able to do, but if the bulls are able to stay above that 100, we'll be okay. If they start failing, then, well, we might be in for a bigger correction down to those 775s. Wow. Look at all those candles. That looks terrible. Jeez, oh Pete. Let's zoom in a little closer here. As far as the overall candle movement back and forth, considering there's not been a whole lot of anything, I mean, we've got a nice drive to the downside into V-bottom, and really the one thing that kind of stands out here is that it was one of those extra dives right back to the earlier area where buyers kind of triggered everything in the first place. And the fact that it snapped right back there and bounced off again really shows that buyers re-upped in that spot, contextually at least. If we're looking at this from the top to the bottom, going into the open here, you've got the volume kind of in the middle at the 15,100s, and that's sort of where that all kicked off. If we're going from the bottom all the way up to the top, maybe at some point, or not. That one doesn't want to do anything. Okay, guess we'll get rid of that one. Let me drag this one forward. There we go. So the 15,120s, we've got that top-weighted POC up at the high that the market's trying to pressure back off of. I mean, as it stands, we're kind of sideways, and it looks like the sellers are trying to creep it back underneath this 100. This is a tough spot. This is a real tough spot to want to be a bull, at least initially. Starting off on the S&P, looking at where things are, we are opening with an inside gap down right back into the previous zone of support from yesterday's RTH bounce. Maybe this is a re-up like we saw in the NASDAQ this morning. Let's get a little bit closer here, see what's going on. All right. Really good bear continuation to the downside. Sellers are looking for maybe a little bit more. If we're looking off of the bottom or the top, if we're looking from the bottom up, We have an initial bounce off of an L3. After the L3, you typically see an L1. They did, so they are holding what you would expect. A little bit more continuation. We would like to see more L1s. They tried holding it, failed to make a new high, and then rolled all the way down into and through the L2 into the 3. So this is starting to get a little bit trappy here. A lot of bulls might be stuck on the wrong side of this because it hasn't really given them that much time to get out. Sellers trying to get things going here. We're stuck in that L3. If we can't pop back to the upside, realistically, a lot of potential earlier longs who are trying to buy in for the reversal, the continuation. If they're stuck, then, well, we should be able to see where, and that happens at 120, obviously, but we should see the volume at least jump down if they're going to show back up. Right now, the sellers have it. Next zone of support is going to be the L4s, L5s. Bigger picture, we're still sideways. Notably, the impulse POC is at 15,083, which is what we just tested to the tick and are bouncing off of. Can they work through the impulse? Yes, they can. Well, maybe. That almost turned into a twin reversal right back up again. See what they want to do here with this extra continuation down. Now chopping through the top of the L4, challenging the bottom. We're also through the impulse POC. More bearish continuation down. Big movement. Man, that's disgusting looking. I don't know about that one. That's a stretch. That feels like it's really reaching. As far as the reversal off of the top, we have the rejection off of the L5. Typically, the first pullback is going to be an L2. We haven't had that yet. It's been an L1 trend. L1, L1. Another little L1 that they tucked inside there. Eventually, sellers are going to be looking for an L2 continuation to the downside. Your impulse is up at 15,100, huh? That's weird. I have mine just drawn to the top candle. And just the bottom candle. How far? Yeah, mine doesn't shift until 8:36, 8:40, somewhere inside there. There's that weird volume node stuff going on again. Sellers still hunting for a bit of continuation down to see if they want to get this thing going. First 5-minute candle is done. Let's see where they landed that. $87.75. But quickly shifted down there. Hang on now. S&P POC was at 43.99. Modifying it forward also has shifted to the downside. Very interesting. Okay. Starting to climb back up. That could be too. If you adjust it from tick to minute, I bet that would be the difference as well. That would make sense. We've seen that before. We have not had the L2 after the L5 reversal off of the top, which is the expectation for the sellers looking for a continuation down. For bulls who are looking for a continuation back up, well, this dip down is a really nice low-risk spot for them to try to do it in. That is one heck of a bear bar. Wow. Holy crap. Seeing it pop back up and hitting that L1, there may be sellers who try to re-up into that move for a continuation down. I really want that L2. Now, just out of curiosity, that ABCD puts it right into that L2. Oof. 15.080 is the modified POC off the morning session so far. This bear bar, that is likely going to be good enough for the sellers to try to get continuation down. I still want the L2, so I'm not going to do anything until we get back up there. But I like this L1 if they're going to try to continue it. That immediate reversal back up, that could be a bit of a clue. We're getting closer to the L2. There we go. Now we're starting to get a test. Beauty. See a drive back down in towards the L1 as the objective for the reversal point as far as the L2 continuation down. As far as downside objectives go, it's still got a little bit of room yet. And then as far as the continuation to the downside would be 2-1. Right about at 70 quarter. So looking for a bit more continuation to the downside for the sellers to finish the job. Nice bull bar back up and then a bear bar back down. Maybe. Still have to wait for the candle to close. Ooh, the bulls do not want that bear bar to trigger. That could cause some problems if that triggers for the bulls, which is good for the bears. Doesn't look like they're quite done getting that trapping done yet. I'll take the first objective off a little bit early. It seems like it's running into a brick wall, and I'm not going to deal with it. That also puts the average in a significantly more manageable spot. I would still like to see the continuation down. From that perspective, a 2-1 off of, well, the current entry point at least, would be back down towards at least the 69 quarters. Didn't get a fill at 2-1 on the test. Fine, I'll take it a little bit early then, you rotten pecker. There's the 2-1 drop. Okay, nice continuation to the downside. Just took a little while there. Vindictive thing. It seems like they just needed a lot of traps to get the move going. That could be an indication that this move down is going to ride the struggle bus. If we look at the overall formation, though, and why I was so patient during that move, it makes sense because look at the wave structure, right? Wave 1, wave 2, really sharp and clean. What do you expect from wave 4 then, if wave 2 is nice and clean? Gross and ugly. This probably isn't done yet, whipping people around. Just knowing where you're at can be a really big help in your patience tolerance. I really didn't want to count that earlier rally to the upside, this little bitty pullback here as much of anything, but I guess it is. You know, in hindsight, it's basically just a 1-to-1-to-1 move all the way up. Kind of funky. Seems like the market still has a bit of herky-jerkus going on. Nice bull bar pop back to the upside. If it's immediately sold back down, it's more likely that the bulls who were potentially trying to get the reversal are exiting with break-evens. We've also been reduced underneath the previous volume node at 80. Sheesh. Big old bear bar right back down again. So sellers may have sold into that as a bit of a washout to the downside, but I mean, really, I think shorts are still short. Their average is up at the 80s. If you had more contracts, this next push down is a great spot right into that volume node. Oh yeah, right into the 65s. Seems like everybody agreed. Wow. Pops right back up again. We finally got the L2 continuation. Now, in terms of structure, I mean, we really don't have much else. We've got the L5, it rolled down into an L1. Okay, that's not usually what's going to happen, but then we got another L1. Well, that changes things. Now another L1 to the downside, that's all at the open. So the algos had fun at least. And then another L1 to the downside. Eventually, we're going to come back and grab the L2, which is where the market went back to, and where all of the selling pressure took back over towards the downside. The downside 2-to-1 target, the nice thing was actually above the lows. So as far as continued targets, now with 3-to-1s, right at the low or maybe just underneath it, not a bad objective. If you're looking for bigger than 2-to-1, of course. Nice roll back down. And more continuation lower. Yeah, this is a really good example of having a trap fuel the fire for the bigger picture. Right? Look at what happened in the end of the move. And keep that in perspective as to how this all took place, right? Learn from this, understand this, right? Really take this in, because there's a lot of super useful info here. In the end, knowing how the story turned out and seeing how this all played out, this trap and this giant rotation more was nothing more than sellers to fill their pockets with orders from the bulls, knowing where we are in the cycle to rotate the market back down again. Now, if you wanted to wait for a bit of extra context instead of selling so aggressively, if you were waiting for maybe a first long, second long after that washout for a failure, or a rotation back underneath the POC, or I mean, you name it. There's a lot of different ways, but that's, again, using this in hindsight information and seeing how it all turned out is very useful info for the next time it tries to do something like this. Once it did finally break down, the POC landed at 15,080. We know how that story ended up. And there were a lot of other things, definitely. Yeah, I mean, the fact that we had that previous POC break at 83 on the impulse, adding to that fire, definitely, I mean, that helps a lot as well. The more things you can add the wind to your sails, if you will, the better. First three S&P bars to the downside, pretty heavy bear bars. POC shifting down though, 43.93. As far as the NASDAQ is concerned, no shift in the POC as of yet. Still back up in the 80s. Big bear bar flush to the downside. Looks like we're still just kind of chopping around. Yeah, those bear bars are no joke, you know. I mean, with this kind of continuation down and the fact that the market's still staying underneath the POC, I have to assume that sellers are at least going to give it a crack. And we've got a minor, based on the 5-minute chart at least, VVP resting at 95.25. So for a continuation standard for sellers who are looking to try to rotate back down, that 95.25 area makes sense. The reason why I'm going to pull my order off of that, is because we've got this larger picture where we are right now. Like, look where we are in the bigger picture. The market is attempting to break down underneath the low of this area. I would rather sell a bit further up. Jeez, it's going to get there all in one shot. Hang on a second. Oh, I tapped the entry. I couldn't get a fill. I tried to sell the ask. That was probably a stupid move, but that was the fastest way I could think of getting an order on the screen. I missed the move back down on the S&P. Oh, hang on. Hang on now. Hang on now. All right. So this pop-up, again, makes a lot more sense from the perspective of a risk tolerance because this zone allows sellers with a lot more wind in their sails. All right, there we go. And the target filled. So that's a good example of I could sell in this area, or I can utilize the information that the market's telling me and say, hey, wait a minute. The previous range is just a bit further up. How about let's make my life a bit easier? You know, that's the goal at least. It doesn't work every time, but the more wind in your sails, you know. Nice little scalp opportunity on that pop higher. Glad it came back and filled. That was nice. POC on the S&P is still shifting down 94.75. On the NASDAQ, it's gone down a little bit. It was at 80, now it's at 70. That's interesting. It's moving in 10-point increments. Okay. We'll take note. All right, so going back to the new move to the downside, where are we in the overall cycle? Right? In the bigger stretch of things, we had wave 1 into 2, really sharp and decisive wave 2, really disgusting wave 4, which fits exactly with what you would expect. And we are now where? We're probably in corrective phase territory, right? So seeing as that is the case, it doesn't mean that wave 5 has to be done. We really need to pay attention to how the market is responding to this. If they're going to look for a continuation down, seeing rejections off these 65 quarters and all of that makes sense. But where are they realistically going to go as far as a further movement to the downside? The next objective, if they do go a little bit further, could be down in like the 45s, 46s. But it's starting to get limited. They're running out of space. We're also directly on top of the negative 0.5 DP, which is a zone of support. 3 or 4 big wick pockets there inside off that POC at 56. Sellers are trying. Again, wave 5s, they can keep going. There's nothing wrong with a continuation when you're on wave 5. Just understand that you're in the 5th and final, right? It's probably not going to go on for much longer. So keep your expectations in alignment. I'm not going to sell underneath that bear bar because it's too far down. If this were inside wave 4 and it was a sharp, decisive one, sure. Not right now. See, right now, I don't have a reason to be aggressive. If it goes without me, it goes without me. Who cares? Right now, it seems like it was a pretty good decision to not take that short, though, knowing where we were in the cycle. Now, for sellers who are looking to reload, this pop back up at 65 is a bit more attractive because they'll be able to get maybe a half to one, maybe a little bit further. And you can see the POC jumping back and forth. That's what they're doing. They're scalping back and forth between these volume nodes. Eventually, one of them will break, and hopefully the shorts, obviously, are hoping that it breaks down and they can run one of these further back down through the low. Keep that wave 5 going. But you can see the volume bouncing back and forth. 61 quarters, 65, 60, 65, 60, 65, just back and forth. They know they're in wave 5. Expectations have to be tighter. If you want to scalp in this area, I mean, you can. Just be quick. This is why. ABCD corrective phase back up does make sense. Zone of resistance would be back in the 85s or so, if they can make it that far. We got 10 o'clock right around the corner, but because of all of the hassle this morning, I'm just going to keep this going, and we'll skip the extended session just to make it so it's not such a short recording. So we'll just keep the morning session going. Yeah, 16 tick scalp, exactly. And that's the thing, when the volatility is really high, you can still bang out really fast 10, 15, 20 tick scalps pretty quick. It's just the important thing is you have to be fast. And if you have a situation, because this will eventually happen at some point, You have a situation where it jumps to where your scalp target should have been, but you didn't have time to place it. You need to get out regardless of where it's at. Because especially if you're going to try to short, knowing that we just completed wave 5. You're in Trapsville City? I don't even know what word I'm trying to get out. Somewhere inside there. We have a rotation off of 15.066 with an attempted move back to the upside. An ABCD corrective phase is expected. That would place a 1-to-1 move right back up into the previous POC on wave... Wow, really? On wave 4. That's ridiculous. It might not even make it up to that. That lines up so well. That's one of those almost too good to be true type scenarios. Got to give it a little bit of time, and don't forget we do have news at 10 o'clock right around the corner. POC is shifting back to the downside at 66. Sellers may be trying to get this to rotate lower. I was mortared by them. Ooh, where are they going to close this candle? Where are they going to close it? Okay. Kind of weak. Triggering underneath the bull bar, maybe. It's still a bit early. I'd like to see that ABCD. Molded by them. I gotta say, though, it was still pretty good. It was a pretty good Batman. All right, nice bear bar to the downside. Sellers may try to trigger it underneath that one. You still can't beat the Heath Ledger as Joker, though. Ooh. All-time favorite. This is either going to be the hold for the continuation down for the sellers or where the sellers completely fail and get obliterated. Market closes above the POC, gaps down on the next candle's open. They tried to get it back under. Are they successful? What does this drive down create? Again, we know we're in wave 5 already, down at the bottom at a negative 0.5 support zone. I mean, this is a hard pass for me, regardless of what way you look at it. News around the corner in 6 minutes. There's so many things wrong with it, but if you're okay with the risk, sellers are still looking for the downside continuation. It's there. I mean, you can see it. There's a lot of big old red flags for me. I'm going to use this, actually, as an opportunity to get a refill, and then we'll continue on into the rest of the morning session. But sellers are probably going to try to get a drive to the downside. It's going to be without me, though. We'll be back in just 1 second here. There we go. All right. So, I mean, kind of as expected, it was going to work its way back down to the lows, but it couldn't make a new low, and we kind of figured it was going to have a hard time anyway. It makes sense. It fits the bill, if you will. Haven't had an ABCD correction. We haven't also had a new low, so let's see if they want to get another 1-to-1 move back up. That would put it at about 75.25. POC still stretching out a little bit. Yeah, exactly. Holding support off the negative 0.5 DP. Again, not a huge surprise, but they're still trying to get another move down. They're trying. They're not doing very well, but they're trying. See if they can... I would really much prefer an ABCD corrective phase back up into the 75s, 80s. How do you place it instead of draw the whole thing? Yeah, so if you're using the tool, if you wanted to, let's just say an ABC, so A, B, C, double click and it'll finish it. Just make sure you double click on the same spot. Don't be too jittery on the mouse or it'll try to draw another point. You got to double click the same spot. Sellers still trying to get the push to the downside. No new low made yet. POC on the S&P is potentially shifting now a little bit bullish. We're back to the 5-minute POC originally, and the POC just jumped right back up again. All right. Still back in this corrective phase overall. I still have that other side of my brain that's saying, you know, hey, this wave 2 was really nice and sharp into the downside. And I mean, really, is this wave 4 really that bad? I mean, it's kind of sideways, sure, but how much better would this fit as a wave 4 before a huge wave 5 back to the upside? That would allow for a little bit of a bigger pullback. But, you know, that's if the market can rotate back above 15,100s and disprove this move lower. Right now, they've got some problems. They've got some serious issues here. Swing longs will be looking at this zone as an area of interest. A lot of stops will be floating under here, which means that a lot of traders will be trying to absorb those stops with their stops underneath the low. Preferably, or generally speaking, when traders are looking for that type of scenario, they want their targets to fit with a 2-to-1 inside the high or better. So that's generally where you're going to find a lot of the support begin to show up, and that would be hovering at around where? 15,000. So, as if you needed another reason to be paying attention to 15,000. That's also where the swing long 2-to-1s, that's where that is. And now that we have a bit more info, we could even say that this would, you know, possibly extend out a bit further. But it did follow what it was trying to do here. From the structural perspective, we've got a continuation breakdown which held the 15,083s. From the bottom all the way down to a new break below the lows, they confirmed their overall POC from the top to the bottom back down again at 15,080. That was the zone where everything transitioned. If that's the case, realistically, that's a super low-weighted POC. I've got to assume that those are scalpers, meaning that their downside targets are probably a 0.5 to 1. And go figure, wouldn't you know it? That's where the bottom was. Really? Okay. Well, when they make it that obvious. Ooh, news coming out. Big jump. I can't believe that's ridiculous. A lot of icing on the cake for sellers on this breakdown. Sharp bottom on that low. Now, notice the S&P. The S&P came back down and held 43.95.75. You know, kind of like it was support. They start triggering above this little micro triple top they got going on at the 43.99.75s. That could be a continuation back to the upside. I've got to assume that those traders are going to be on the lower probability, higher probability just based on the risk. They're going to have to put on a decent chunk of risk to get that going. It doesn't really fit. Very aggressive V bottom forming here off the lows. Yikes. So again, we've got wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, and wave 5. We've got a nice little sideways consolidation that went on here. All of them, 3 lower highs, right back down. Now, the next consideration here is this going to turn into a new cycle? And, well, unfortunately, we've broken back inside that area, so that can't be the case. This is all likely still part of the correction. Newbie question. Oh, yeah, don't worry about it. When you have time, but can we assume that all stops are usually at pivot lows or highs? Yes, and it's a very straightforward answer. Humans are lazy, right? We're going to use, and it's for our own benefit. I mean, that laziness is called efficiency. That's what keeps us alive and using our energy on the right things. So it's a good thing in a way, but a lot of traders will just look at it. It's the same mentality as a big round number, right? Like, oh, that swing high is very obvious. It shouldn't break that, or I'm wrong, so I'll put my stop there. That's why some of the best swing trades are looking and hunting for those areas and then putting your stop just a bit further beyond that. The probability is low because it might just blast through and you get nailed. But if you're right, the reward can be like 7-1. It's worth it, you know, even if it's only 20% accurate. Especially if it's 20% accurate. So the assumption is, yes, there will be stops there. Like right now, I can tell you, very likely, there are a lot of stops that are above this. That's the wrong spot to have them. There's a lot of stops above this. That's also the wrong spot to have them. There's this one, which actually fits. That is a confirmed minor swing. So that works. That would be a correct place to have a stop. The other places would be these micro swings. If they're trying to get a bit greedy, that's a terrible spot. That's also a terrible spot. This would be the next stop above that next confirmed swing. Again, there's videos going over confirmed swings and what they are. Those are going to be the areas of interest. So if we know that, then what I was just talking about, one of the highest reward scenarios would be sellers selling this confirmed swing with stops above this one. Because look at the reward versus risk. They risk this much for a continuation back to the downside. In this case, it's kind of bad, actually. But even bad is still a 2-1. So that's assuming you wanted to go short, of course, but that would be the mentality. I like using that to my advantage because I know there's going to be a lot of stops above here. I know there's going to be a lot of stops above here, but those are not appropriate stops. If you see resistance that's beginning to form there, and that would be a really good example of one like right here, where you've got all of these little inside swings, but the confirmed swing is here. Sellers will sell here and here with their ultimate stops above this, knowing that they're probably going to be wrong 75-80% of the time. But when they're right, the reward is all the way down here. That's like 8-1, you know? It becomes worth it, is what it comes down to. More continuation to the downside. Pretty heavy. As far as the drop down, we shouldn't really see any support coming in until at least like the 98s to 97s. I thought 70% plus traded via algorithms, not real life traders. Correct. But who programmed the algorithms? A human. They're going to have their human intentions naturally programmed into them. There's nothing they can do about that. The only way to ever get around that would be having a computer program another program. And then all of a sudden Terminator starts happening, you know? So it doesn't matter that they're driven off algorithms because a human still wrote the algorithm. You can still track exactly what they're going to do, irregardless. Or at least the likelihood that they're going to do it. Remember, it's all a probabilities game. Awesome job, Zach. It's the same reason why when a MACD crosses, all of a sudden you see a bit of activity. It's easy to program. Just because the market's dominated by algorithms doesn't mean those algorithms work. Now, from the big funds and JP Morgan and all of them, obviously, they're the ones that have, you know, people who get paid to update their algorithms on the daily, on the hourly, let's be real. Then you have algo creators fighting other algo creators, and it's a whole other chess game on a scale that you and we can't really play on. There's too many zeros involved in that game. More continuation to the downside. Sellers are obviously breaking out of the norm of what they were doing, so it's likely that they're hunting for an objective. What better likely objective than, well, the area where swing longs are looking to come back in the psychological 15,000. Again, we have the POC shift off of the top side, 15,100. So the fact that the POC shifted all the way back to the upside would at least give us an idea that we might even expect the possibility of this POC to POC shift being the difference. And if that's the case, their break-even is going to be hovering a little bit further down towards the 14,950s in between those two. And we know the NASDAQ does love a good slide. So the support begins at 15,000, but it might not necessarily stop until down under 950. A little further up. That would be like the best in the planet, back down like the 25s, 26s. Currently at a 0.82 drop. All right, we're starting to get back into those value dip territories. The last pullback, 0.76. And the pullback before that, 0.94. It's kind of shallow on this one here. 0.57, yeah. It's probably another 0.5 something. Yep, 0.56. We're starting to see that distance pull down a little bit. Given that the last value dips were 0.5s, the fact that we're at like a 0.8, that's right around where value traders would come in, but you'd also kind of expect them to see them possibly even double down those 0.5s, just past one. It still puts support a bit further down below 15,000s. Either way, one thing's very obvious. We just have to wait a bit longer for the market to get down here and then find where the buyers show up if they show up. If they don't show up, then we're probably looking for a bigger pullback outside of the 15. Then we're zooming back to the 60 and we're talking some pretty big drops. Then we get to go and talk about the 2% drops. Woohoo! We have finally made our way down through the negative 0.5 DP. Use it as resistance on the other side of things. Looking across the board on this drive lower, the NASDAQ's kind of standing by itself a little bit on this drive lower. Bitcoin and Ethereum also getting slapped around a bit. Crude super sideways and range bound. There's nothing happening there. Gold had a nice jerk back to the upside above 1800s. Now they're back again. Having a little bit of a tough time there. S&P mostly sideways as well, but a little bit of back and forth. Just a big wide range, really. The NASDAQ is really the only one that looks like it's hunting for something. Let's zoom out to like a 60-minute. What's that look like? Actually, let's first duplicate the tab so I can delete everything and then change the time frame. Okay. So as far as, I mean, the most obvious thing, right? Previous confirmed POC. That's down in the 75s. Oh, man. It's just that deeper pullback, that looks real juicy. Look at these candles right now, too. I mean, who's going to want to fight against this? We're going to have to wait for some serious conviction to shift in order to go against this. It's just too aggressive to the downside. Sellers are on breakaway mode. We're getting an extended wave 5, which is usually on fear. Fear drops. We know how those go. They usually go a lot longer than you want them to if you're on the wrong side of them. See if the market can get a bit more back and forth going on here, or what they want to do. Little bitty continuations down. Here again, man, I'm starting to think I just got to close my eyes and just let the trades go. The last few days, all of these, every single one of them, the first trade of the day, I think, has been the start point of like the biggest move. Yesterday, yeah, the longs should have just stayed long. Go back. Well, the first trade was short over here, so it was a good thing we took profit on that. But eventually started flipping back over to the long and should have just stayed long. All right, well, I guess that rule doesn't work every single time, but I got to try to get a couple more contracts for runners here. These runs are really running. I mean, I say that we're getting 2-to-1s. It's not like it's disappointing by any means, but it's kind of salt in the wound from a psyche perspective, you know. Like, dang it. Still dropping. 15K. We hit it. I might have accidentally deleted my line. Hold on. Oh, that's got to be way bigger. Hold on a second here. Let's go like 15. Let's get this thing a big chongus. There we go. 15,000. Don't mess with this. We're right on top of it. Starting to crack through. Next zone is going to be the -1 DP rather. That's just above the 980s, this orange line here. Still hunting down to those areas of interest. Yeah, the S&P is just not following along. It's kind of hanging back. Where's my other... The 15-minute chart of the NASDAQ looks absolutely abysmal. Let me see. Where is... There it is. Let's look at the correlations. Hello, charts. Please load. There we go. Looking at the correlations on all of these, I mean, you can see the NASDAQ is definitely leading the pack right now. Yikes. All the others, we've got nice continued support to the upside. The support on the NASDAQ is the one that's broken. The S&P is just starting to crack right now. Well, the RTY hasn't even turned up. That's been going down the whole time. So a little bit of a divergence going on there. They're at the lows. Might already be kind of done. As far as the EMD, though, the EMD has a nice little potential breakdown point going on here. Failed pennant to the upside for a rotation down. If the market really wants to fall apart here. I mean, they've definitely got a shot. Still driving lower. We are dipping down hard here. I'm going to try to start building into a slightly earlier position, but with a mentality of trying to get some small scalps out of these zones as well, because I love this area as far as swing traders go to try to create a bounce point of interest to get this thing moving back to the upside. But we've got to be a little bit cautious as far as where the market's going to try to churn to. We're getting in the zone of interest. Nice pop back to the upside. Oh, man, I got a terrible fill on that. Let me see if we can get a little bit lower down towards the 50s here. And we'll try to get something a bit more. I saw it when it jumped up to like a plus 12 to take the quick scalp to look to build in more, but it didn't want it. Didn't let me. Get down into those 50s. They're not too far away. They came close. From a swing trader's perspective, on the option side of things, if we start seeing transitional movement down here, something along the lines of like higher lows, transitional phasing, we know the NASDAQ might just be a V bottom, but that would be what a lot of traders would like to see. Still seems like the sell side on the NASDAQ is the one that's trying to get things going, though. S&P finally cracking through the lows and catching up just a little bit. Also demonstrating maybe, it's still forming, 2.5 minutes left, but maybe some downward candle gapping. This is that extended fear drive to the downside, now 200% of the leg. Curious what the math looks like if we shift this over a little bit, though. Yeah, it's a 1.61 move. Okay, so they did end up using this kind of gross intersection inside here instead. Either way, I have an incredibly difficult time wanting to be a seller this far down, but we are underneath the -1. Sellers are obviously trying to get something going. They're hunting for those bigger objectives. Swings are picking away at this on this move down. Nice bear bar down. I would have a very hard time not seeing sellers take something like that. I don't believe it personally because I think we're too far down and I don't want to sell this far down. But that's a really nice bear bar for sellers to give it a shot off of. Bulls giving it a shot a second time around. Come on now. Back at the 63s, which is right where that trigger was. Whoops. Sellers are attempting to drive down. If the sellers are going to take over, though, they're going to have to break through the 963s. As far as a continuation phase to the downside goes, I mean, obviously this broke away pretty aggressively. Some nice follow-through bear bars. I don't like the sell side, but I would like seeing the sell side try a couple times and fail, and then maybe try to grab another long. It's heavily overextended down into a zone that makes a lot of sense for buyers to want to be coming in on the bigger picture. It's just the timing of it's going to be what's difficult. It still feels like it's very early. Of course, V-bottoms, when they form, always feel like they're very early. Really strong bull bar back to the upside, good enough to begin the initiation for a position up. If it does want to just jump from here, that's fine. Then I'll look for a 2-to-1 up. But I really like the potential for a larger continuation. It just hasn't really given me a chance to make that happen. So Really nice drive to the upside. More continuation back up right into the 2-to-1. Very nice drive. All right, well, I mean, it's kind of a good thing, kind of a bad thing. I mean, it sort of went without me in the sense that I wasn't able to get more than one, but it was a beautiful transition. The way that they did it was fantastic. Just, it didn't give me any time to do much at all. That's just period. I didn't have a chance to do much. Beautiful move, though. Do you buy the 5-minute bull bar? I'm assuming you're talking about the S&P, this really strong one right here. I think traders will, for sure. Given the location where we are, if we zoom out a little bit further and we kind of look at what's going on, this is, you can see some of these earlier ones. Coming back into this zone, we're not really in any major zone of support from an RTH perspective, other than where the market paused here. And we already know that's the 2-to-1 objective from the buyers that we're buying down here. So is that a strong enough reason to believe that the market should reverse right here, right now? I'm not sold on that, you know? If I were going to buy that, given that context, I don't think it's a high enough probability to scalp. I think you can take it, sure. But it has to be a 2-to-1 because the probability is just not there otherwise. The only way to get the probability there would be making it a true... a true scalp with a monster stop way the heck down here just to compensate, which is not worth it. So I think it's feasible, sure, but it's got to be swing. That's the only way that it makes sense. More continuation off of the lows. Beautiful transition off of the base. ABCD corrective phase back up is now the anticipation after 5 waves to the downside and a massively overextended 5th wave, usually on fear. What a shock. It's almost like we just talked about this. That does mean, though, that this drive down, we have to check. Did they satisfy some objectives? The lowest point at which they went, does a 2-to-1 fit inside the highs? Yes, it does. Okay. Now, another consideration would be, now that we've finished this ABCD correction phase to the downside, is this a new form to the downside? And it's already it's a 2 times drive. That's great. It's just got to stay below 15,050, and all of a sudden now we've got a 5th wave potential. And where's it going? Probably going down to 775. So this is a really, really interesting spot right now, because if the shorts can keep it under this 15,050, give or take a little bit, then they've got an active reason to believe that we should see a continuation down pretty aggressively. And where does it land? Right on 775. 1.38, fib number 2. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, you know? I don't believe in coincidences. Now, will it make it there? I don't know. But it's something to pay attention to. This is a major zone. Bulls right now have a long with an objective inside the highs. Not perfect, but... You took the entry long on the ES with a POC shift with a 2-to-1 win. Nice. And again, that's the only way that I can really see that trade making any sense, is going for 2-to-1. Because I just don't see the probability otherwise. I mean, not unless you want to risk like half the house. You know, it's kind of ridiculous. And I don't really want to build in over the span of like 70 points. You know, it's just not quite worth it at that range. Also, great job. We are going into 10:30. Things are beginning to slow down. We're seeing some signs of potential reversals off of the lows. The S&P is climbing back above the POC. We do have, today being Tuesday, we've got the API report later today, or later this afternoon. Should give us a heads up in terms of what else to expect. But that's about it as far as news. So feel free to get some questions in. We'll get those covered for you. as we move into training time on another pretty solid day. And yeah, we'll go from there. Bears attempting to transition back down again. I still have a very hard time believing them, especially considering wave 1 into 2 that's forming right now in the short term hasn't been broken into. It's still qualified. If you sell for the ES, where do you sell? Okay, so as far as selling for the S&P, let's zoom in. Are you talking like on a 5-minute chart? First, let me make sure what time frame we're talking about here, like the 5-minute RTH? Yeah, okay. So if I were going to look to sell, first off, I would want to make sure that I'm selling in a logical location. Let's roll this back a little bit here. So at the moment, in order for a sell to take place, the only thing that we really have would be a breakdown of this previous range that creates resistance. That's a nice zone of resistance. It's also at the negative 0.5. We have the POC on the previous swing, which is just above that, and the 5-minute POC, which is just above that at 99. So realistically, if I'm going to sell, this is kind of the hot pocket, you know? I want to be selling inside there. The risk is small, because if it starts breaking above that by too much, then obviously you're wrong. And if it cracks above this, chances are, if it does break above that, side note, you'll probably see it come back to break even. Nice launching pad for the longs, nice exit point for the shorts who got stuck. But that would be the reversal attempt to climb back up, V-bottom out, fill the gap. All-time highs, here we come. So the shorts still have a reason, and as long as that POC stays, you know, coming back down at around 98.50 and it stays under that, they've got a reason to believe it. Looking at it from the perspective of risk-reward, the 2-to-1 fits in beautifully as well. So, I mean, it is a low probability trade. It is what it is, but it fits, you know. How often do you purge your support resistance levels? I got some levels I have no idea where they come from anymore. I try to do it every day, at the start of every day. 2 reasons. First off, I have to take screenshots of my charts for people, so they've got to be clean, otherwise it's going to be confusing. But also, second reason, it gets confusing if you don't. So I usually clean it off multiple times a day, if I'm totally honest. The important thing is that if you get in that habit, is lock the things that you don't want to accidentally delete. Or like you notice what I just did when I wanted to work on the NASDAQ, but I didn't want to disturb my current drawings. I created a duplicate tab and then deleted all of those. So that way you've duplicated the drawings as well. You can delete them and it's not going to mess with anything. Just make sure that you have your globals locked and stuff. Got more continuation to the upside. Still, I mean, they're still plotting some really nice bear bars. I'm having a tough time wanting to be a bull down, or rather up here. Down where it was when it was shifting that initial POC, yeah, 100%. Obviously. but as far as where it is now, that's tough. That's hard. Got to see a bit more out of it, you know. Nice bear bar to the downside. That might be that little bit more. Jeez, and as soon as it happened, it's gone. There's no chance to even respond. Everybody was so starved for action. They finally saw that bear bar. They're like, good enough. Immediately jerks down into a scalp. What do you want to bet? Their entry point underneath the low. Yep. Scalper's target right there. Everybody's so bored of just sitting here watching it do nothing. They just took it good enough. That's funny. Another bear bar to the downside. It feels like it's getting a bit herky-jerky, and with trades happening emotionally like that, that's when things get super trappy as well. It might be better to just call it a day while it's still in the positive and not risk giving it back. 3 bull bars. Do you buy or scalp for the S&P? 3 strong bull bars like that with candle gapping to the upside tells me that if I wanted to go short, I was wrong, unless that gap closes. I've got problems. I can't short in the face of 3 strong bull bars like that. Got to take the second attempt. So it doesn't matter if I wanted to sell at the previous POC. I can't short into that kind of action. The only way that you might be able to justify it would be if it reached out in the form of a washout. Right? If you had like this, from here, as an example, this big, super extended bull bar up here, totally, yeah. Right, that makes a lot more sense. But a little bit of a different scenario in the face of those kind of bull bars. That's tough. It'd be like right now in the NASDAQ saying, hey, I want to go long. You know, it's like, okay. Yeah, okay, good luck. Best of luck, enjoy. It's possible. It's not that it's a bad trade. It's just offset that with a bigger reward. You can't post a link? Hang on a second. Try... That's weird. Hang on a second. I can put you in timeout. Whoop, don't do that. That's the wrong button. He did nothing wrong. Normally, when someone tries to post a link, it'll pop up. Oh, hang on a second. I just realized something. When you first load it up, it's on top chat only. It doesn't show me all chat. I didn't know that. Ooh, okay, so I might have missed a lot of questions and comments. That makes me look like a jerk. Great. Now that I know how to do that, I can fix that from the future. But when I switched it over, I just saw a question that I didn't see before. Interesting. Whoops. Luckily, it looks like there's only one. Try to, isn't there, maybe I've got to do it outside of this. Yeah, I don't know. Try posting a screenshot. What does it tell you? I'm curious. Because I'm still, I'm still learning a few things from the YouTube side. Does it just flat out tell you can't? Like usually I thought it would pop up and say, hey, there's a screenshot. Do you want to moderate it? Market does make it back down to new low after the bulls were able to achieve their 2-to-1 objective up. Now, the bull gap that was there is totally gone. So all of the hopes that the bulls had on the S&P to the upside, gone. Just to pop up to remember to follow the community guidelines. Okay, good old YouTube in their helpfulness there on that one, huh? Okay, I'll have to look into it. I'm sure it's just a setting that I have to change, but. Just as a side note for screenshots and stuff like that as well, if it doesn't put it in the comments, you can also post it in Discord if you're a member in any way, shape, or form. You've got that available to you. Otherwise, you can just shoot me an email if it's something you want me to review. But I'm assuming it was probably like, hey, take a look at this. Yeah, I don't want you to get banned either. I won't accidentally ban you. But I had no promises as far as YouTube. I don't know if they're warning you already. I wouldn't worry about it. It's probably a setting I have to change. All right. I'm not seeing any other questions come in. Let's do a final call for questions and we'll wrap it up. Overall, really strong day, all things considered. I mean, it's been good. A little bit kind of funky inside there, but I'll take it. If funky equals still good day, that's fine with me. Do you sell this bar for a stop run for the buyers? It's possible, yeah, but I don't know that I would want to sell way the heck down here. This could also be the start of a major move, but realize that the actual trigger took place underneath the bull bar. The signal bar is the extreme, right? So given that that was the trigger, if I were going to sell anywhere, I'd rather try to re-up on a retest, which it looks as like what traders are doing. Yeah, that's what they did. So selling below the candle, maybe not, but yeah, how's it going, Zach? More continuation down now to a negative 1.5. This is beginning to get into that major zone of interest where traders are starting to pick up this area of, a real zone where swings are starting to pick this up. Right now, we're getting that 1% dip, a little bit lower, etc. This is where things get interesting. You should make a voice channel for Discord. That's a good idea. I like that. I don't think it's that hard. My concern is, well, I guess as long as I moderate it close enough. Voice channels are always awkward like that, but all right. I'm not seeing any other questions going on. So as per the usual, if I missed any, feel free to shoot me an email with those. I'll get you covered from there, or drop them in the comments below. jhb@ssftg.com. Oh, sorry, I didn't see that one. Bear channel for a 5-minute, right? Yeah, I guess. I'm not super pumped about it. But it fits now. I would call it more of a wedge, if anything. So, I mean, I can see it, yeah. And this would give you a pretty good guide as to why you wouldn't want to sell way down here. But sell the pullbacks, don't sell the bottom. Don't follow CNBC. Anyway, enjoy, rest up. If you have any questions that I missed, feel free to get those to me one way or another, comments or email, and I will see you all tomorrow morning, right? Have a good one. We'll talk to y'all later. Thanks.